On the phone, and I hope I don't mess this up or I'm going to fire myself, Bugs Henderson. Bugs, you there?
I'm here, man.
All right. Where are you calling us from, Texas?
I'm in East Texas at home. Yeah, I just got in last night.
It's just a glory to hear from you, and we appreciate it, and we know you miss John Henry.
Well, I wish I could be there with you guys. I really do, and I do miss him. And my wife and I both are tore up about it. The whole band's tore up about it. I can't get the show down here, so I don't know what all y'all talked about, but I'm sure you've been talking about how nobody knew more about music than he did.
Absolutely. In fact, you know what? We never knew about you until we met John Henry.
Well, I know. Everything that happened for us in that time frame in Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas was all a result of John finding that old album of mine from the 70s and just hammering that out on the air on the Smokehouse Blues show. And he started that whole thing for us down at Joey's. And, I used to stand up on that stage in old Joey's and think, if there's ever a fire in here, the band will never get out.
Yeah. That's back. We've got Jim Smith on the line here with you as well. You remember Jim Smith, don't you?
Bugs, how you doing?
Barely.
Oh, yeah,
barely.
just barely, right.
Yeah, I remember Jim. Sure I
do. In fact, the first time I met you, John insisted, I was living in Oklahoma City, he insisted I go to the Varsity Grill to watch you play. And I think that's the first place I met you.
Well, he was one of those guys, and really, I'm not buttered up here, too, but it was really the whole station, too, but John especially. I'd never encountered a group like that where y'all actually just played stuff because you liked it. That's
there you go.
That's been gone since the 70s, and it was so refreshing. I mentioned it on one of our albums once. I've talked about it before. We'd be listening late at night, and we'd hear Jerry Jeff Walker, and then we'd hear Rush, and nobody else played music like that. And John played stuff, old stuff, and then brand new stuff too, just that he liked, and that was good. He just played stuff because it was good.
Well, and he was the guy that was instrumental in bringing you here to Tulsa and really introducing you and getting you well known here. I mean, you play here once, twice, 3 times a year now, don't you? Or you used to?
About twice a year, and he was the guy. He gets full credit for it, yeah. And the night my wife and I fell head over heels in love, we were sitting in the KMOD van at the Blues Fest watching Buddy Guy sitting in there with John Henry, and he was a big deal in my life and in my career, and I'm just. It hadn't sunk in yet, I don't think. Then I'm going to come back to town sometime. He's not going to be there.
Right. Bugs, you've traveled a lot of markets. Did you ever meet anybody anywhere near him in any of the other markets?
Not even close. And I'm not exaggerating.
Yeah.
And I've been around a while, too, and I, kind of pride myself on knowing a lot of trivia about old records and stuff, but my God, you just couldn't keep up with it.
No, not with 3 computers, Bugs.
Oh, you couldn't. I mean, anything you named, he'd rattle it off for you when it was done, and when they were born, when they died, where they're living now, or what color their hair was, what they dressed like.
It's like,
he knew it all.
What they had for lunch that day, they recorded the tune.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it was just out of sheer love for it, man. And that's how you get that. You just don't get that by opening a book and start studying. You got to love it.
Well, and I think, I don't know what the plans are there at the station. Like I said, I haven't heard the show tonight because I can't get it. But I think it's very, very important that show go on as a tribute to him. It was such a wonderful deal, every Sunday night. And, it's such a cliche to say he'd want it to go on, but of course he would. It's just so much a part of Tulsa music and Tulsa life, having that show there. And I hope somehow it works out where it can still go on. Somebody will do it and keep his memory going.
Big shoes to fill.
We're looking at Jim Smith right now.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that?
No, we were talking about this the other day. The program director guy here. Because what? I'm sorry, I missed that.
Right on.
There's no way to fill his shoes. I mean, nobody with the knowledge that could come in here and do this show. And I don't know, quite honestly, what's going to happen to it. We've talked about it.
No, you're right. There's no one that can fill his shoes. No, not even close. But the spirit of the show and playing that kind of music that for that long every Sunday night. There's just not any shows like that. Mm-mm. I go, all over the world. I mean, they're just not. There's not much of that going on anywhere else. Tulsa's real lucky to have him. They were.
Bugs, can you tell me the story of how you met John Henry and when?
Yeah, a fellow named Curtis Sparks called me and told me that John Henry was playing our album, and it was an old album I'd done years ago. I called up and talked to him on the air one night, and he played almost the whole album. I was just freaking, man. He just get airplay like that. He'd go, okay, now we're going to play this cut. Okay, now we're going to play this cut.
Yeah,
exactly.
So he invited me up to the show. I came up to the show the next week and did the show with him, and we talked just forever on the show between cuts about old blues guys and guitar players, and he just blew me away with his actual knowledge. I mean, a lot of guys that do this for a living have some knowledge of it, but not to the depth he had.
No.
It was just incredible.
Absolutely right. Well, and before long, he had us playing your stuff on our show in the mornings.
You bet.
Don't tell the program director.
That and those checks I sent helped, too. I think.
Those free copies of the albums, tickets, that all worked.
Never hurt.
Well, he knew your whole history, too. I was trying to think back. Was there a band called, like, something in the Mousetraps or Mouse and the Mousetraps or...
Mouse and the Traps.
Mouse and the Traps.
Yeah.
And that was you in the
band
what?
that was in the 60s.
Yeah.
And, yeah, he knew all about that, too.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, because I remember when you were coming to Joey's one time, he said, let me tell you about this guy. And he starts out with the Mouse and the Traps back in the 60s, and you played outdoor festivals, and it just went on and on and on and on. But that was, every artist you ever mentioned, you got that kind of background. Let's see, you have like O-positive blood, don't you, Bud?
Really?
I believe I do. Hey, what's really so strange is the day before Melita called me and I got the news, we were in the studio working on the new album, and I had just decided to throw some of the rough mixes together and send them off to John to see what he thought about them. And you don't usually send those off to anybody else, but I knew he'd call me and give me an honest opinion of it. And hey, it was just great to use him as a sounding board for stuff.
And always had time for you, too.
Oh, yeah.
Always.
You could call him anytime and he'd talk to you on the air or off the air, and you just don't get that anywhere.
Nope.
Yeah, because Brent won't take your call.
He won't take me.
Well, I've got two good friends of mine named Bugs, and one of them owes me money.
Well, Bugs, we appreciate you calling. Anything you want to say in summation?
I love John Henry to death. I could not even begin to count the things he's done for me and my career and my band. A wonderful man, a wonderful friend. I hope somehow the show goes on in his memory, and I hope that Tulsa realizes what they've lost here, because it was a magical time in music history for that town, and it's sad that he's gone, but we'll miss him.
Amen.
I know you can't hear it down there, but I know one of his favorite albums of yours was American Music, and that cut, Ain't Nobody's Business
Ain't
If I
nobody's business if I do.
Do. He liked that a lot, so we're going to crank that up here for you.
I appreciate it, man.
All right, Bugs,
Thanks for calling.
Good
Good talking to you, Bugs.
Y'all have a good night.
All right. God bless you. Bugs Henderson on KMOD, the Smokehouse Blues, remembers John Henry.